Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Annika Holland, and this is my marketing plan over Barnes & Noble. So first, just a little bit about Barnes & Noble is that they were established way back in the 1800s, but since then they have been merged and partnered with, and now since 1971 with Leonardo Riggio, he has been the main establisher of who Barnes & Noble is today. So now James Daunt is the appointed CEO of Barnes & Noble and runs basically the operations. And their mission statement today is, our mission is to operate the best specialty retail business in America. And regardless of the product that they sell, because that product they sell is books, their aspirations must be consistent with the promise and the ideals of the volumes which line their shelves. And so I wanted to keep this mission statement in mind while I made this marketing plan. So Barnes & Noble is the world's largest bookstore with 150,000 textbooks and trade titles. And this is also including thousands of ebooks which they utilize on their Nook. And then, so first, looking at the SWOT, Barnes & Noble has tons of strengths that they have. For example, online books, using their Nook, they have great shopping experience, partnerships with Starbucks, and then competitive advantage in the bookstore industry as being the lead bookstore in America. And then some of the weaknesses they have is they're not keeping up with the growing industry, and that's obvious with Amazon taking over. And then profitability is difficult with managing that many stores that they have, and then having overhead costs of distribution, of having so many stores to pay for, and then losing college textbook sales to places like Chegg. And then also holding high amounts of inventory is very expensive, as mentioned, in overhead costs. Some of their opportunities they have is to adopt new technology. And so that can be adopted on their online stores and in their stores, and then working with schools is going to be another opportunity since they are so education focused. Next is to enhance the buying experience, to make it fun and unique and just very niche for the target market, and that's what we're going to talk about later on, and then expand into the emergent industry. So some threats that they have is obviously Amazon is their big competitor, and that is who's taking a lot of their customers. Print is kind of a dying field right now. Technology is really the big main player in the game, and Barnes & Noble is kind of lacking to adapt. And then with Nook sales, that was their main play at trying to adapt to this technology, but the Nook could not compete with the Amazon Kindle. And then also public libraries is something that's always going to be accessible, and having free books where you're having people buy books is always going to be a threat. And then relying on seasonal sales. So I already talked about Amazon a little bit. We know that Amazon is the big main player because they have great distribution, many distribution centers, and then their own trucks. So they're going to be a main player also because of the convenience of buying with them. Books A Million is a main competitor mostly because they're a brick and mortar competitor, and they're someone who could steal more of the market share from Barnes & Noble. So of the macro environmental analysis, looking at the coronavirus first, this is the main thing that we're looking at right now with bookstores being shut down. They're not an essential business, but they do still have an online store, so that's something that they could combat that with. So also because of this, their stock had plummeted on March 13th to negative 8.3%, which is an all-time low, and is going to take a really big hit to stockholders. And also some of the socio-cultural trends that are affecting Barnes & Noble right now is the changing shopping habits of people in America. We are using technology, we're using ease of some convenience of just one-tap purchases. And then also Amazon has such a wide variety of stock. They can carry so much, and so that's going to be really affecting how Barnes & Noble operates. So now I just want to look at some of the objectives that I went over whenever I was preparing this plan, and one that was to increase customer loyalty by 10%. And that's just because we want to rebrand who Barnes & Noble is, and so we want to redefine who a loyal customer is. And so also that's going to look like increasing brand awareness with our target market, and then also driving online store sales. So our segment that I wanted to look at was some of the demographics, psychographics, and geographics of who could possibly be a customer for Barnes & Noble. Right now, Barnes & Noble is mostly a catch-all customer type of store. They want to cater to all of those people who could possibly buy books, and that is why they're having so many stores, they're having such high stock, and they're losing so much money. And so narrowing this down, we can look at the education level, age, and income of a target market. Also, what are their hobbies and where do they live? So the target market that we want to narrow in on all of these segments is college graduates, which would be ages 18 to 29, and in the regions of Seattle, Portland, Washington, and San Francisco. So college graduates are a very unique niche group because they are increasing in their spending power as they're graduating, especially with degrees. Those are also people who are more interested in reading and increasing their knowledge. And so these are obviously people who are already going to be in this age range and who are more interested in just continual learning. And so also in the regions of Seattle, Portland, Washington, and San Francisco, these are already places who were rated by Amazon as the most well-read cities in America. And because it seems, I think it's Seattle, that's where the Amazon base is, it's going to be difficult to penetrate a place like that. But those are also places with great culture, and if Barnes & Noble could adapt the way that their store is perceived to those people and be more niche to them, they would be able to bring in a lot more of those customers in store and then also online. So how to position themselves to reach this target is to really, as I mentioned, drive their online sales. Convenience is going to be a big factor for college graduates. It's going to be a big factor for people whose hobbies are reading, who really are interested in continual learning, because that's where knowledge and that's where education is at right now, especially in times of coronavirus. And then improving the shopping experience is going to be so integral, as I mentioned, especially in those cities where culture is very important. So the product that we're looking at right now is the largest in-store book variety, and that is very important to understand that we can't just get rid of that. That's going to be a really important competitive player in the game. But we could utilize this stock to move into online stores. So now textbooks are also really important right now. Battling with Chegg is going to be very difficult, but that's why we need to establish those partnerships with universities. And then also the shopping experience is a part of the product that is delivered from Barnes & Noble. So the price that is of the books at Barnes & Noble is, people who are coming out as college graduates are going to be more price sensitive, but that will change as time goes on. And that's because, this product, a book, is on the Maslow's hierarchy of need, more towards the top. So it's not one of the basic things that people will they need to spend any amount of money on, but it is a luxury. So we do need to keep it as a fixed price, as something that can be competitive against Amazon and Books A Million, because this target market is working to pay back loans. They're going to be doing so much to be integrated into jobs. And then because of that, we want to drive online store sales. That's a way to keep our prices low as a company and also make high sales. Some price objectives. One is to increase the market share by 4% in the fiscal 2021 year, and this is so doable with the online sales. And then to maintain their current pricing at fixed. So of the distribution, what we have is 5 channels, and that's producer, wholesalers, distribution, store, and customer. So this is really difficult to have this many channels. So Barnes & Noble actually does a very good job of managing all of them by having already set documents and guidelines of how they're going to deal with producer to wholesale and distribution to store. But also they're working on faster distribution straight to customer. So something I want to look at a little bit closer is their methods through storage. They own their own centers to store all of this stuff, so that's going to save them a lot of money. And then also is going to be really important for the online sales. They can keep all that stock in their own storage facilities. And then next, inventory. They don't keep more than 1 or 2 books of one title in the bookstore at a time. So they have that down to a T on how they want to hold their inventory. And then order processing and fulfillment is done very strategically through an online software that they've utilized for about 10 years and has been very successful in working with vendors. And last, transportation is utilized through FedEx Ground and USPS, other third-party third-party transportation. So next, of communication, these are a few objectives that I wanted to set for our communication guidelines, and that is 1, most important, is to build a branding base. And so that is just bottom line, who is Barnes & Noble? Who do they represent? And then 2 is to start changing the attitudes of those who we're targeting, of how they're perceiving Barnes & Noble. Because 1, if they perceive it as just a large wholesaler that you could just go and buy a book, we're doing it wrong. Because we want them to see the store as a great place to go and sit and read, and also a great place to go and buy a book. So 3rd, that also leads to drive brand switching. So some of the places that they may be shopping before is Target or Walmart or Books A Million, obviously Amazon. And so we want to be able to drive brand switching through changing those attitudes of how they're perceiving the store and saying that Barnes & Noble is a better choice for me. And then 4 is establishing that loyal customer base out of that brand switching, because those are people who you're going to hold on to tighter, and you want to be able to please them and keep them for longer, because as we know, it's more expensive to buy a new customer than to keep an already existing one. And so 5th is to continually assess and recalibrate these methods for communication, because we know that things are always changing, but we want to keep up with our target market and be able to really give them something that they believe in. And so we're going to talk about that here in a moment with our budget. First, most important is to always keep up with marketing research. And so this has been allotted $1 million, one for pre-assessment of market research and then post-assessment of market research. And so that's going to look like just assessing who our target market is, what they want, what they believe in, what they love, and then what they don't love. And so we're going to be able to do that through focus groups, through surveys, and just so many other methods. And then post-assessment is going to look like watching what our marketing is doing and how people are feeling. If we're getting social media conversions, we want to be at monitoring that and then putting together different stats of how it's working. And then 2nd is the online store, which is very important in this marketing project. I've mentioned it so many times, and so we want to allot some money to improve the online store in year 1 before we even go forward with trying to market it, because we want it to be the best product that it can be. And then 3rd, through SEO, we want to improve how people are finding Barnes & Noble and just be that first little site that they see whenever they're looking for a book online. 3rd, through social media. That social media is taking over marketing right now, and we want to be on the headline of it, because other companies such as Target are doing a fantastic job at connecting with customers on social media, on Twitter. They're using people who are in their target market to run their social media so that they can better connect with their customer base, and it's doing very well for them. So last, through brand ambassadors, this is something new and emergent in the marketing industry. These are people who are going to represent our company well, who are someone who is already of the target market, and they can try to sell our product to their own target market, which is people who would be a lot like them, who would be following them. So last, for implementation, some objective metrics that I have is just that brand awareness. That is our baseline to completing financial, marketing, and societal objectives, and it's all contingent upon brand awareness. And so how we're going to measure that is through a software. It's called Lantana. Because this is so important, we want to utilize a software that is going to be able to track progress of how people are viewing the company and if this is working, and then being able to readapt. So for sales ad costs, I calculated that in just 1 year we could make $4 million, which is a 10% increase in what they made in 2019. So last, for the contingency plan, a way to prepare for a scenario where the marketing plan is not working, we want to utilize employees who are tracking this. And so their job would be to monitor risks, vulnerabilities, and set procedures for responding. So that is all I have for Barnes & Noble. It was a great company back then, and it can still be a great company today if they utilize adapting to changes.